We're live.
Thank you, Connor. Good afternoon, or good morning still. This is a convening of the Massachusetts Gaming Commission, meeting number 555. I'm Jordan Maynard. I'm serving as chair, and I'm having a little bit of deja vu because we did have an agenda setting meeting earlier. That said, we're holding this meeting virtually, and we will have to do a roll call. Commissioner O'Brien is not able to attend the meeting. And with that, Commissioner Hill.
Good morning again. I am here.
Commissioner Skinner.
Good morning.
Commissioner Broder.
Good morning. Still here, sir.
All right, and I'm here too. And I will remind everyone we've had a tight schedule, so if something happens and we need a lunch or we need a 30-minute break, just let me know. All right. So that's the call to order. I do want to say for the public what I just said privately. This is my favorite meeting of the year because we get to fulfill our statutory obligations under 23K Section 61B to, quote, expend monies in the fund to assist the host community and surrounding communities. To me, that operative word is community and communities, and making sure that we're able to support them as best we can. So often what regulatory agencies and bodies have to do is administer fines and do things that aren't so fun. This should be nothing but fun. What we're doing is making sure that we take these much needed dollars and give them to programs that you're going to hear about today. And I know that Chief Delaney is going to walk us through some of these requests, and you're going to see that the Commission's got an opportunity to do great things across the Commonwealth with these dollars. So with that being said, anything to add, Commissioners, before we begin?
Mr. Chairman, I would just echo what you said. This is my first go-round, and I had the opportunity to sit in on a bunch of the meetings to hear a lot about these projects, and not just community projects or some other agencies, but the energy and the seriousness with which the communities take this opportunity to help their residents, and the seriousness with that our staff treats these requests with, recognizing the unique opportunities there are here. Exciting thing to be a part of, particularly as a former municipal official. This can be a lifeline for some important work that these communities do. I'm looking forward to sharing these things with the public, and as you said, spreading the good news.
Thank you, Commissioner Broder. Anything else before we kick it over to item 2A? I know Commissioner Hill and Commissioner Broder, I will thank you for both serving on that committee, and it makes a ton of sense given your backgrounds. And I know that when I go across the Commonwealth, the programs that are benefited by these funds, they're always excited and they're happy to get them, and they make good use of them. With that said, Chief Delaney.
Okay, thank you, Chair and Commissioners. So today is the first day of our Community Mitigation Fund application reviews for FY 2026. We received 35 applications, which requested a total of nearly $25 million. So we put together a review team to look at these applications. And in addition to myself, the review team consisted of Bonnie Andrews, Jenna Hentoff, Zach Mercer, Jaden O'Rourke Nelson, Mary Thurlow, Lily Wallace, and Judy Young. And I really do want to thank the review team for all of the hard work that they put in reviewing these applications and being really thoughtful in that review. As you had mentioned, Chair, the review team was also joined by Commissioners Hill and Broder during the application reviews, and we appreciate that input that we got in that process as well. So the review team met with each applicant to discuss their applications, and in some instances, applications were modified as part of this review. We also did make recommendations regarding each project, We won't go into significant detail on each individual project, as each of the commissioners have had a 2x2 to go over the projects in detail. So we'll just go over the projects briefly and whether or not the review team has determined that they are eligible for funding. There were a significant number of waiver requests for funding that was in excess of the grant allotments that had been approved by the commission as part of the guidelines. The review team didn't make recommendations regarding the waiver requests, as these are discretionary on the part of the commission. What we did do, however, was determine whether the projects covered under the waiver requests were eligible under the guidelines. And we also did try to provide some context with respect to the waivers and whether they met the intent of the financial waiver as outlined in the guidelines. So today we're presenting 23 applications to the commission, which include all of the regional agency grants, the grants for all the Category 2 communities, which are those communities around Playing Ridge Park Casino, and a portion of the Region B communities. Those are the communities around MGM. The remaining applications will be presented at the June 17th, 2025 meeting. And so, as I said, we'll briefly review each application. We'll present any discussions that we have on the waiver requests, and then we will open each application up for any questions or comments by the commission. So with that said, is there any questions that the commission has before we jump right in?
I think we're good to go, Joe.
Okay. So first up, we have our regional agency grants. And the first category of those grants is the regional planning grants. And the first application we have up before us is the Metropolitan Area Planning Council. They are requesting $300,000 to perform some preliminary design on the Chelsea Everett Greenway connector. This is a project that we started last year, and this is a continuation of that to try to connect Chelsea to the Northern Strand and the casino. This application does request a waiver. The FY 2026 allocation for MAPC was $250,000. They are asking for $300,000, and the additional $50,000 will provide additional flexibility in the planning and also help MAPC do some additional stakeholder engagement in Chelsea. So with that, I will see if there are any questions or comments from the commission.
Mr. Chairman? I think this is a good project, and I'm ready to move on it if you are.
Commissioner Skinner, Commissioner Broder, Commissioner Skinner.
I'm sorry, I'm going to be a Debbie Downer for just a minute here. I want to just speak generally because we have a number of applications that have attached waiver requests to them. And so I want to make my comments known so that we don't have to keep rehashing every single request for a waiver. And I'm also going to speculate that I might be in the majority here, but I think granting a waiver for well in excess, and not just, I'm not speaking about any application in particular, but granting a waiver for well in excess of the allotted funding under the block grant structure, I think circumvents the spirit and intent of the structure itself, as well as the waiver process. It seems to me that if we grant each of the waivers as they have come to us routinely, we're creating a bad precedent in that we will have created an unwieldy expectation that the waiver process can be used to get around the funding limits should funding be restored in the future. And I know that is a big question mark. And so part of what I'm going to say is you might consider moot, but and I recognize that the commission has complete discretion as to whether or not to grant a waiver, but I doubt that what was intended is for the waiver process to be used as somewhat of a loophole or to serve as an exception that swallows the rule. Each one of these projects, I think that they are worthy, but I do think that we have to be careful because we do have, after it's all said and done, if the commission grants every single application that's before us, if we grant every single waiver, there will still be some funding left over for consideration next year. And I feel a bit icky about what is seemingly this approach to deplete the fund now. I don't think that that's necessary. Again, I am very mindful of the status of funding, but I do think that, as I said, should the commission grant these waivers to the tune of something like $5.5 million, I think that goes well beyond what we as a commission intended when we converted the original structure of this grant program to the block grant structure. Just wanted to make my sentiments known. Again, and I'm not intending to fight. I know it will be probably an uphill battle. Again, I'm speculating as to the way this will shake up, but it's important to me that I have my thoughts be put on the record.
Commissioner Skinner, those thoughts that were well thought out are appreciated and supported. Every member of this commission has an equal voice for the vote. I appreciate it. I hadn't planned on doing this, but this is the nature of doing our work in public. I have had to go back to the statute a lot because we have created as a commission over the last decade, or not even quite decade, structures in place, right? And it's been us. We've done it ourselves. And if you go to the statute, to the pure heart of the statute, I think that we have a ton of discretion. And I think maybe we hamstrung ourselves. And I was a part of that vote 3 years ago that voted for those block grants. And so I hamstrung myself too, right? But now's the time. Now's the time to get this money out the door. It's needed. I'm going to take quite the opposite tact, which is, and in fact, when we are finished with this grant round, if the funding is restored, as you said, and that's a big if, I want to take a whole new look on how we structure these and how we look at these. And, that said, we didn't do that this year. And so I'm going to work within the bounds that are there. I'm not going to violate any of our regs or our statutes. But I think we've read this thing too narrowly for many, many years. And in fact, I think we should be getting all the dollars out the door, and we should be hustling to find ways to help the communities to get those dollars if need be. So that's where I come from, and that's my take. And commissioners, Commissioner Broder.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll be brief because this is the only structure I've operated under, and I didn't have a hand in structuring the protocols. I don't think they rise to the level of regulation, but I could be wrong about that. I guess I try to take a very simple approach to each and every request, and that is essentially that of a value proposition. Are we going to get good value for the investment we are helping folks make with any particular proposal? If that requires a waiver and the value is there, I'll vote for the waiver. If the value isn't there, I won't. But I will admit I lean more towards what you said in terms of getting the dollars out the door, but not for the sake of getting the dollars out the door, for making sure again that we're getting good value. I suspect we're all on the same page with that very kind of general proposition.
Yeah, no one wants to. There's not one of us that wants to violate Chapter 23K here, I don't think. I just think there's a question of how broadly or narrowly you read something, and I didn't see anything in any of these that looked to me like a clear violation of 23K. Commissioner Hill, your motion, you didn't make a motion.
But I'm ready to when you are on the first one.
I'm perfectly fine with that.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, and through you to my fellow colleagues, I move that the commission approve the regional planning grant application from the Metropolitan Area Planning Commission for funding from the Community Mitigation Fund in the amount of $300,000, including the amount of their waiver request, for the purposes described in the submitted applications and materials included in the commissioner's packet, and for the reasons described therein, and is discussed here today. And further, that the commission staff be authorized to execute all necessary grant instruments commemorating these awards in accordance with 205 CMR 153.04.
Wow, that's all. I'll second that, recognizing the great work of the MAPC.
All right, Commissioner Hill,
Aye.
Commissioner Skinner,
Aye.
Commissioner Broder,
Yes,
and I vote yes 4-0. Congratulations to the MAPC, and we know you're going to make good use of those funds.
Okay, so
Yeah.
next up, we have the Pioneer Valley Planning Commission. They're requesting $200,000 to do a traffic study that involves MGM Springfield, the city of Springfield, and the surrounding communities. The review team has determined that this is an eligible project for funding. Their allocation was $250,000. They are only requesting $200,000, so we fully recommend that amount of funds.
Mr. Chairman, I would request that Joe do the next one as well, and I can do one motion for both, if that is what the commission would like. You're on mute, Mr. Chairman.
I'm okay with that.
Okay, so next up, we have the Southeast Regional Planning and Economic Development District. They are requesting $235,000 to do a traffic study around the Plain Ridge Park facility. Again, the review teams determined that this project is eligible for funding, and we do recommend that full amount. And also, SERPED has not requested the full amount of the allocation that was set aside for them.
I have no problem with what the staff has proposed, Mr. Chairman, so I would be ready to make a motion if my fellow commissioners would be all set with their questions and comments.
Commissioner Skinner, Commissioner Broder, we good? All right.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the commission approve the following regional planning grant applications for funding from the Community Mitigation Fund for the purposes described in the submitted applications and materials included in the commissioner's packet, and for the reasons described therein and as discussed here today. And further, that the commission staff be authorized to execute all necessary grant instruments commemorating these awards in accordance with 205 CMR 153.04. And those regional planning grant commissions, the Pioneer Valley Planning Commission in the amount of $200,000, and the Southeastern Regional Planning and Economic Development District in the amount of $235,000.
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Skinner. Commissioner Hill,
Aye.
Commissioner Skinner,
Aye.
Commissioner Broder,
yes,
and I vote yes 4-0. Joe.
Okay, so next up, we have the regional public safety grants. And Chair, I know Commissioner O'Brien had asked to have some input on this. Would you like me to defer these until the 17th, or would you like me to go through them now?
You can remind me, because we had that meeting together. I think she was okay with discussing them, but she wants to hold off on a vote.
And that's fine. I can walk through them pretty quickly, and then we can just we can have some discussion here if you'd like, and then we can just defer the vote until the 17th.
That works for me.
Okay, so the first one is the Massachusetts Attorney General's office in the amount of $259,800. This project is addressing domestic violence, human trafficking, and sexual assault. This is a continuation of a grant that we started last year, and the review team has reviewed this and has determined that this project is eligible for funding. So we are recommending the full amount of this project. Does the commission have any questions or comments regarding this application?
I don't. Commissioners, it looks like you're good to move on to Hampden County.
Okay. The next application is the Hampden County District Attorney's Office in the amount of $75,000 for personnel assistance to assist with cases related to the casino. This is funding that we've done each year for the DA's office. Excuse me. And they are continuing to request these funds. The review team, as we have in years past, has determined that this project is eligible for funding, and we are recommending the full amount of the grant. Any questions from the commission on this application?
No questions from me, commissioners.
Okay, the next application is the Hampden County Sheriff's Department. This is for lease assistance in the amount of $400,000 to offset the cost of lease payments for the Western Mass Recovery and Wellness Center. As we have in previous years, we have taken a look at this project, the review team has, and we have determined that the project is eligible for funding. And we are recommending funding for this project since it is eligible. There has been some discussion in the past on whether or not these funds should be continued for the sheriff's office. But as of last year, it was determined that they were eligible to come in for an application, and we've reviewed it and determined that they are certainly, the project is eligible for funding. So with that, I will open that one up for any questions from the commission.
None. Just to note that we did do a tour up there last year, and it was a really, really good tour. And note for the record, the vote was 4-0 last year funded. So I'm good.
Okay, so the last of the regional public safety applications is the Suffolk County District Attorney's Office. This is, they're proposing to establish a Safe Neighborhoods Initiative prosecutor based in the Chelsea District Court. They are asking for $100,000 for this, which is the target amount for the DA's offices. Again, the review team has reviewed this application, and we've determined that it is eligible for funding, and therefore we're recommending it in the full amount of $100,000.
Thank you.
Okay, and so I think we had structured this as a single motion with the 4 applications. So I guess we will defer this until the 17th, until our Commissioner O'Brien has had a chance to review this meeting, I guess, and I guess we may have some further discussion on the 17th.
Chief Delaney, I think that makes sense. And, you know, just also for the record, Commissioner O'Brien, and we all share the same burdens, but Commissioner O'Brien is appointed by the Attorney General. And so it was important for her to be there for the vote for the public safety grants. And I support that as her colleague, and I know our other colleagues do too.
Okay, and moving right along to the regional workforce development grants. The first one is the Holyoke Community College, Springfield Technical Community College, and Springfield Public Schools. This is their Work Ready 2025 program. This is the pretty much the same program that they've been running for the last few years that we have funded. This one does have a waiver request of about $57,600. And this is to help improve, this is particularly for Springfield Technical Community College, to improve their bilingual support by hiring bilingual instructors and developing multilingual materials and so on. So the review team reviewed this and has determined that the project is eligible for funding, and again, up to the commission's discretion on whether or not to fund that waiver request.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Hill.
so we all toured this facility as well. And what a place and what a program. And, it's one that I totally support. However, out of respect for my friend Commissioner Skinner, I do want to talk about the waiver. I think the waiver request is a good one. It's important for that area, the bilingual education be offered. So I don't have a problem granting this waiver as part of a motion that I would make, but I did want to speak to it because I know you're concerned about it, and I respect that. And your comments earlier, I respect a lot. So I just wanted to speak to the waiver, that it's something I think is important for the program and important for what's going on out there. So I would be in support of the waiver as part of the application.
Thank you. Commissioner Skinner, I saw your mic off, and then Commissioner Broder.
Commissioner Hill, thank you very much for that. I appreciate it very deeply. I too think that each one of these requests, including the waivers, are appropriate. They are exactly what this fund was set up to take care of for these communities. And so I'm intending to vote with the majority on each one of these. And so I really, the intent for me is to make my concerns known for the record. But I don't, in principle, I don't disagree with funding these projects as they've been put before us. So I appreciate the opportunity to revisit that. And there is no need to, in my estimation, revisit each one of these waiver requests.
Okay.
Commissioner Broder. Thank you, Commissioner Skinner.
Should probably just say ditto. I do want to thank both the former speakers for their comments, and to Commissioner Skinner for raising a very well-founded concern about how we consider these things. I've got a bit of experience in workforce development programming. I do want to speak to the waiver in this case, and I won't belabor it, but the cultural competence of this, that the program serving this particular area needs the waiver to be fully effective, to be able to reach the population that we want it to reach. So I think in this case, the waiver is a well thought out piece of the program itself. And workforce development and job creation is a big part about why we did this in the first place. So I think this is a very well structured program, including the waiver request.
Thank you, Commissioner Broder. I echo all the sentiments and agree that, listen, Commissioner Skinner always makes sure we're buttoned down here, and I appreciate that, and make sure that we're not doing anything out of line, and I respect that to the process. I would support these for the same reasons that everybody just stated, and to say that listen, the money can sit in the bank account, or it can be put to use, and I'd rather see it be put to use.
With that said, Mr. Chairman, I'm ready to make a motion.
Thank you, Commissioner Hill.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the commission approve the Regional Workforce Development Grant application from the Holyoke Community College for funding from the Community Mitigation Fund in the amount of $807,600, including the amount of their waiver request, for the purposes described in the submitted applications and materials included in the commissioner's packet, and for the reasons described therein and as discussed here today, and further that the commission staff be authorized to execute all necessary grant instruments commemorating these awards in accordance with 205 CMR 153.04.
Second,
Thank you. Commissioner Hill,
Aye.
Commissioner Skinner,
Aye.
Commissioner Broder,
yes.
and I vote yes, 4-0. I am thinking as we move on, I do want to make sure that we are, for the record, at least acknowledging when we do run into a waiver that we're going to grant it or not grant it, just for the record. That's legal eagle kind of stuff. So with that, Joe.
Okay, so the next application we have is from Mass Hire Metro North. It's the Metro Boston Regional Hospitality Consortium, requesting funding in the amount of $750,000, which is the amount of the allocation set aside for Region A. This application is essentially the same consortium that we had last year that does a number of different things in the region. And we continue to determine that that is an eligible project and recommend funding in the full amount of $750,000.
Commissioner Skinner.
Mr. Chairman, I'm ready to make a motion if everyone else is.
Yes.
I move that the commission approve the Regional Workforce Development Grant application from Mass Hire Metro North for funding from the Community Mitigation Fund in the amount of $750,000 for the purposes described in the submitted applications and materials included in the commissioner's packet, and for the reasons described therein and as discussed here today. And further, that commission staff be authorized to execute all necessary grant instruments commemorating these awards in accordance with 205 CMR 153.04.
Second.
Thank you. Commissioner Hill,
Aye.
Commissioner Skinner,
Aye.
Commissioner Broder,
Yes.
and I vote yes, 4-0.
Okay, so next up, we have the municipal block grants. The first group of them are the Category 2 communities, which are those communities around Plainridge Park Casino. And the first one up is the town of Attleboro. We're requesting $49,900 for some speed radar traffic trailers, 2 of them, to help control traffic on routes 1 and 1A, which are major routes to the Plainridge Park Casino. The review team has determined that this project is eligible for funding, and we are recommending the full amount of that grant. Are there any questions or comments from the commission on that application?
None on that one.
Okay, so the next up is the town of Foxborough. So in this one, the town is requesting a waiver. Their allocated amount is $64,500, and they are requesting a total of $399,300, which means the waiver is about $334,800. And this is for the Regional Destination Marketing Initiative, which we have been funding for the last few years. Foxborough works in conjunction with Plainville and Rentham on this initiative. And we fully recommend the funding of certainly the base amount of the grant. As far as the waiver goes, again, discretionary on the part of the commission. This waiver is a significant waiver for this region. Typically, the entire region is allocated $500,000 for all of the communities in that region. This waiver alone makes up about 67% of that total amount. So it is a significant amount for that region. So just wanted to raise that as an issue regarding that. Any questions or comments regarding that application?
Can you just remind me on this one? We did go do a tour day or two with that particular group too.
We did, yeah.
Very well-run program, Mr. Chairman, and you see a lot of fruits from the labor for sure.
I remember them saying that, you know, they get people in the region a lot and they're trying to keep them and capture them down there when they're down for games and various things. And I just remember thinking to myself, being from a rural area myself, right? I understood the assignment.
It is always great to see the communities working together to multiply the effect of their dollars, to be sure of that. It's not always easy to do, to be sure. And when communities can, kind of get their acts together and do it, it can be a very, very effective regional approach.
Okay, so I think, so moving on, so I think we'll go through all of the applications before we take motions on the remainder of them, because we've kind of bunched them together in various categories. So moving on to Mansfield, they have requested $147,700. Their regular allocation is $63,000, so they have requested a waiver. The particular projects are, the first one is a hotel call reduction project, which is a continuation of the project that they started last year to reduce the number of service calls that they get at the local hotels. The second one is some public safety officer training in the amount of $40,400. And then the third project is the purchase of some automatic external defibrillators. So the review team has reviewed all of those projects and has determined that they are eligible for funding. With respect to the waiver request, the reason for this that the community gave was that the town has a budget deficit. That is not typically the reason why we would grant a waiver in this case. One of our guidelines talks about supplementing and not supplanting existing funding. And also, again, it's not the intent of the waiver to fill a budget gap, as that would be considered supplanting the existing budget. But we have determined that each of the projects is eligible for funding under the CMF. So with that, I'll open that up to questions or comments from the commission. None appearing. So the next one is North Attleboro. North Attleboro has requested a waiver. The total amount of their request is $1,572,350 with two projects. The first one being police traffic mitigation, and this is for the purchase of some license plate recognition cameras, some radar speed signs, and some training for police officers. Again, the review team has determined that that project is eligible for funding, and we recommend that piece of the project. The second project is for the construction, the reconstruction of a portion of Route 152 and the intersection of Route 152 and Route 106 in Plainville in the amount of $1,500,000. This project is a $7.5 million project that received a $3.9 million Mass Works grant for road improvements. With this request of $1.5 million, the town would still need to come up with $2 million on their own to fund this project in its entirety. Again, the waiver request is almost $1.5 million. It's $1.49 million. That is a very significant waiver request for this region. Again, the entire amount of money earmarked for the region has typically been $500,000. So this is a very significant request for the region. It is an eligible project under our guidelines. It does carry the requisite amount of traffic necessary to make it eligible. So this is certainly, again, a very large project for this region. And, the commission could consider granting the waiver, not granting the waiver, or doing anything in between if they so chose. So with that, I will open that up for any comments from commission.
I don't think I have specific comments on this one.
Mr. Chairman, I'll try to be brief. As I understand it, this is a big ask, but one of the reasons why I think this requires some reflection. And ultimately why I'm supporting this, because this is a transportation project. Transportation is one of the big impacts that folks have talked about in terms of development of these destination gaming locations since before the shovels were in the ground. And I think this is very attractive because it will have, it's a North Attleboro ask, but it will have a regional impact. And the town is kind of footing their piece of it by, if they're going to have to fund a significant local contribution. And we see MassWorks kicking in as well. This is the kind of investment that can have a multiplier effect. So when we come to a motion on this, I hope we'll approve the waiver.
I appreciate that. Commissioner Broder?
Okay, if no other further comments, the next one up is Plainville. They are requesting $153,300 for several different projects. And of course, the first one is $21,400 that would be transferred to Foxborough for the Regional Destination Marketing Initiative, which is something that they have participated in for the last several years. The next one is for some training for the police, fire, and EMS response, known as air alert training, and also for the purchase of some equipment. The review team has determined that that project is eligible for funding and is recommending the full amount of that project. And then the next one up is a distracted and impaired driving safety education initiative. This is something new that we haven't seen before, but the review team has determined that that is an eligible project and is recommending that. And then lastly is the purchase of some license plate readers, which is something that we have funded on a number of occasions, and we are recommending funding of that. So with that, I'll open that up for any questions or comments from the commission.
Delaney?
Okay. Next up is Rentham. Rentham is requesting $155,200. They are requesting a waiver for that amount, or for the amount over $76,800, which is their grant allocation. Destination Marketing Initiative. They have participated in that program again for the last few years. And then the other request is a public safety request from the Rentham Police for the purchase of 2 mobile license plate readers, 2 mini message boards, and some traffic enforcement on routes to the casino. So all of those projects were reviewed by the review team and determined to be eligible for funding. We would recommend full funding pending the waiver request. Any comments on that one?
I know that we've done those boards in the past. Commissioners? All right.
Okay, moving on to Region B. The first one is town of Agawam. And initially, they had requested $785,000, which would have required a waiver for that amount. In reviewing the application, we determined essentially that a waiver was not necessary. The town had applied for one of their projects previously, and this project is really just adding a small amount of that to make that project whole. So I'll just quickly walk through the individual projects. The first one is in aerial truck response training for the fire department. And the second one is elevator rescue operations training, also for the fire department. Again, the review team determined that those projects are eligible for funding, and we do recommend funding in full for those. The town also requested for the fire department an EMS first response vehicle. Initially, they were asking for full funding of that vehicle. The review team reviewed that, and we determined that no more than 25% of the funding should be provided by the CMF for that project. We went back to the town with that and they agreed with that, that would be appropriate for their project. So we're only recommending 25% of that funding of that project. In addition to that, they have asked for some the license plate recognition cameras, which we agree are eligible and are recommending, and also for advanced vehicle extrication equipment that we, for the fire department, that we have determined also is eligible for funding and are recommending that in full. And then their last project is for the reconstruction of an intersection, the Suffield Cooper Rowley Street intersection. This was what they were originally asking for their waiver for, and this will take just a little bit of explanation if you'll indulge me. A couple of years ago, we gave them a grant for this project in the amount of $833,300. But at that time, it was proposing a roundabout, and they determined that there was some land takings and other things that were going to drive that cost way up. So we went back to the drawing board and came back with a set of traffic signals there. But in essence, in the intervening years, the method by which we calculate the subsidy changed. So we calculated this new project using the new subsidy, and what we came up with is basically giving this project an additional $55,800, and that will essentially make it whole by our current funding. So in this case, for the entire project, we are recommending partial funding of this project in the amount of $321,500, because essentially this gets them all of the projects that they asked for that amount of money. So so that's our recommendation on that one. Any questions on that?
None for me right
Okay,
now.
none appearing. So next up we have Chicopee. Their requested amount is $341,100, which is the amount of their recommended, their allocation. So we are recommending full funding of this in that amount. But the individual projects, the first one is for the installation of license plate readers, again, surveillance cameras along routes to the casino, which we determined is eligible and are recommending funding for. The second part is Chicopee Center Streetscapes Phase 2. This is the intersection of Center Street and I-391 in downtown Chicopee, a project that we started with planning funds last year. These funds will get this project through 75% design level. So we are recommending full funding of that project. And then the Valley bike share system, the city's asking for $82,400 towards their participation in that regional program. Again, we've determined that's eligible for funding and are recommending funding for that. This is a continuation of funding that we did last year. So any questions on that? Okay, next up is East Longmeadow. They requested just a little over $350,000. We're actually recommending partial funding, reducing that amount just a little bit to $347,200. And then just going through the individual projects. The first one is a conceptual design of the center town district, which is again a continuation of an effort that was started last year with a zoning study. And we've determined that this project is eligible for funding, and we do recommend it in full. The second is a public safety application for ambulance equipment improvement. Again, this is jaws of life type tools that are upgraded over sort of the older equipment. These run on electricity rather than pneumatic and so on. And we do fully recommend funding of that project. Also for their public safety, LifePak cardiac monitor and defibrillators, 2 of those for their life support ambulances, again, recommending full funding of those. A lighted mobile sign trailer. Again, we are recommending that. Those are kind of things that we funded frequently in the past. The fifth project is radar units for their police vehicles. They inadvertently asked for one extra one here that was not warranted. They have 6 vehicles to equip with these, and they asked for 7 initially. So we just took off that one of those units and came up with that reduced amount. Also, some traffic cameras, 3 cameras at some key intersections in East Long Meadow. We determined those are eligible as well. And then lastly is the East Long Meadow Rotary redesign feasibility study. Route 83, which carries a significant amount of the casino traffic, goes right into that rotary, and it is certainly an intersection that is well worth redesigning. If you've ever been there, you would know. So that is it for East Long Meadow. Any questions regarding that one?
Isn't the Mug and Muffin in East Longmeadow? To my Western Mass friends, I love that place.
Can't remember.
Either in Longmeadow or East Longmeadow. I've been on that rotary.
Yes, it's there's 7 streets that come into it. So yeah, it's a bit of a challenge. If they can actually come up with a really good solution for that, I'd be happy to see. So next up is Hamden, the town of Hamden. Their allocation is $75,000, and that is what they are requesting. And this is for an outdoor marketing plan in Hamden to try to attract some visitors that are coming to the casino to come to Hamden to enjoy their outdoor activities and to support local businesses. Again, the review team took a look at this, and we agree that it is eligible for funding, and we're recommending the full amount of that project. Any questions on that one? Okay, so the next one is Long Meadow. They were asking for the full amount of funding, or just under the full amount of funding. When we reviewed this, one of the projects we determined was not eligible, and we have asked the town to see if they had anything else that they could put in place of it. We did just hear back from them that they're going to have something for us tomorrow. So I'm wondering if we can't defer this application to the meeting on the 17th. I'll walk through it here, but maybe when in the motion, if we could, if the commission is okay with deferring it. I said, obviously we'd like to try to get the communities out the money if we can, but we would need some time to take a look at that modification.
Well, can you restate
So
that?
yeah, let me just we'll go through with this. So the first project is increased rescue capability of public safety request, again for the fire department, new emergency medical equipment that we are recommending. The second project is for traffic cameras. Again, similar to many of the other projects that we've done, we're recommending that. And the third one was this Linwood Drive sidewalk project. We simply couldn't find a nexus to the casino on this project. I don't know what project is that they're proposing to replace this with. We won't see it till tomorrow. But what I would suggest is if it's a worthy project, we could include it in their application. And if we could just defer this discussion till the 17th, to give them another chance to get the money out to the community.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. Commissioners, thoughts?
Well, my initial thought is we could vote for the money that we do agree with today, and then have another discussion on the 17th, but
you could certainly do that as well if you would like to do that, just as long as we're not shutting them off from having, from being able to come back in.
that would not be my intent. But
Right.
I would look to my friends in the legal office to tell me what's the best way of doing this.
If you want, hi Commissioner and hi Chair, good afternoon. if you do want to go forward with the vote for Long Meadow today, I would suggest adding in language that it is, you're approving the application as currently presented for the whatever amount you, for the amount that is recommended by the review team.
Why don't we hold off on Long Meadow until the 17th?
I think it's cleaner that way, at least for me.
Yep, for sure.
I think
Just trying to get the money out, that's all.
I think to alleviate your potential worry there, Commissioner Hill, I think all of us agree that Long Meadow doesn't have to worry about getting zeroed out because we're moving them to the next meeting.
Right.
Correct.
We'll say that on-
And Chair, if I can just take a couple of minutes here, in our next round of reviews, where we reviewed all the applications, but we do have a couple of situations where there are projects that we are not recommending, and we are going to try to go back to those communities and hopefully have some responses before the meeting on the 17th. But my fear is that we may not have all of those responses back. So, I guess the question for the commission is, I guess, do we want to be giving people another bite at the apple to try to get this money out? And if that causes us to go past June 17th, is the commission okay with that? Should that happen? I'm not saying that it will, but I'm saying that it could.
Is it another bite at the apple, or is it a change of request given our responses back, I guess, is my major question. Because if it's a bite at the apple, that's one thing. If it's us just trying to work well with them to get the money out to their communities, I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
But I'm interested.
Agreed.
Could you clarify? I don't see a distinction there. What am I missing? I don't see a distinction at all.
The distinction is if there was no application to begin with during the application period, if there was
That's not applicable though, right, Joe?
No, the application was timely.
that's my point, is if we do, Commissioner Skinner, if you remember, we've done some changes of uses before, even after the grants have been paid out. I mean, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that idea.
Yeah, I guess what I'm saying, it's not exactly clear, Joe, to me, what you mean by another bite at the apple.
Well, what we're saying here is we told them that we were not going to recommend this individual project and asked them, do you have something else that you can put in place of that project that would meet our guidelines? And they, obviously not everyone, you will see one application in Region A is that they had a bunch of projects already in their back pocket in case we said no to a project. This is not the case here. It wasn't like they just had something said, oh, we can put in another project in place of it. They had to kind of go back and see what they had and so on. So it does take a little bit of time to do that. And that's always my concern is if we say to communities, well, we're not going to recommend this project. Well, they certainly have the option to go ahead with the project and take their chances with the commission. We certainly, as a review team, have been overruled before by the commission if it was something the commission felt strongly about. But most of the communities, if we tell them that we're not going to be recommending it, they like the idea of trying to replace it with something else.
So I think for me, that would be a new application, right? Requiring the committee to get together again to evaluate.
We would have to take a look at that and review that. Yep.
Yeah, that's where I stand. I consider that a new application that is more ripe for the next funding cycle, unfortunately.
I appreciate your views, Commissioner Skinner. I hope you appreciate mine, that I liken it to a change of use, and I would allow it to go forward. If I could stamp something on my forehead right now, it would be get the money out if it's legal.
Yeah, well, then we have to ASAP. And again, this might be moot. I am fully recognizing that, but we need to bring those guidelines back before this commission and make them make sense, because right now they don't make sense to me in the way that we're going about our business today.
I understand. Thank you. Commissioners, All right, Joe.
So we'll bring that one back on the 17th, and hopefully we will have something to report. So next up is Northampton. They've requested $75,000, which is the amount of their allocation for a digital marketing campaign. We reviewed this and determined that the project is eligible for funding. So we are recommending that full amount of funding to Northampton. Any questions on that one? Okay, and let's see, I believe the last one is West Springfield. This one is a little bit complicated, so bear with me as I walk through this one. The West Springfield has requested $518,300, which is their allocation for FY 2026. And I'll walk through the project. Some money was moved around a little bit on this as part of our reviews. So the first project is a wayfinding project for downtown West Springfield in the amount of $99,600. We've determined that that project is eligible. We've done wayfinding in several communities over the years. So we are recommending funding of that project. The second project was EMS response bicycles. The town has withdrawn this request and has asked if we could put that money towards their bike share expansion project, which we have agreed to do. This one here was a request that we were not going to recommend this request, so the town had asked if we could, if they could repurpose those funds, which we were able to do. The next application is public safety for fire training. This is for standpipe operations, which are the water tanks that high-rise buildings have in them. It requires some specialized training. So we're recommending that full amount of $15,000 for that. So the next request is the public safety, the police, fire, and EMS and dispatch support in the amount of $250,000. So these funds were put in place for the additional police, fire, and EMS personnel that West Springfield hired to increase staffing as resulting from the opening of MGM. So there were originally 8 firefighters, 8 police officers, and 3 dispatchers that were hired in advance of the opening of MGM Springfield. Back in 2020, we agreed to fund this project based on the 1-year look-back studies that were done by MGM, which identified an impact of the casino that was attributable to MGM, which resulted in the commission funding this project. And of course, at that time, there was a 1-year look back, and then there was a 5-year look back. So in the intervening years, we continued to fund this project based on that original 1-year look back study. So the 5-year look back study was recently completed, but it did not review additional data on the call volume and traffic that basically drove this initial request. So essentially, there was no conclusion reached whether or not that this additional funding is continued to be should be supported. The town did reference a 47% increase in calls for service at the West Springfield hotels and motels since the opening of the casino, and so West Springfield continues to maintain that additional staffing, should remain in place since the opening of the casino. So, as a review team, when we looked at this, absent that sort of hard data that they provided on the 1-year look back study, as a review team, we had a little difficulty kind of figuring that out, quantifying the impact. We certainly looked at that evidence submitted regarding the increase in calls for service at the hotels and motels, and we do agree that there is a continuing impact and that the impact is not likely decreased in the intervening years. So we are recommending this portion of the study. Obviously for next year, with likely a reduced level of funding, we may need to revisit this. And, the commission may want to look for more concrete information on that if they want to continue funding this beyond the current year. After that is a prisoner transport vehicle. We're recommending funding no more than 25% of this vehicle up to a maximum of $20,300. Initially, the town was asking for almost 50% of that cost to be borne by the Community Mitigation Fund. Our team felt that that was a bit excessive since we didn't have any good hard data that showed what the increase in arrests due to MGM was. So we recommend a grant not exceeding that 25%. And the town did ask that these funds also be added to their bike share expansion program, which again, we agreed to do. The next project is traffic enforcement. This is for the purchase of 2 new LiDAR units and a traffic trailer message and signboard, as well as some dedicated police patrols for traffic enforcement, particularly associated with the bridges coming across the Connecticut River from the casino. And then the last one is the bike share program expansion. So we're recommending partial funding of this in the amount of $100,400. Basically, this project costs $153,924, and as a transportation construction project, it would be eligible for the full amount. The town is just requesting the $100,400 as they didn't want to ask for a waiver on the application. So we are recommending the full funding in the amount of $518,300 for the entire application. And I was mistaken. This is not the last application. We have one more beyond it. So any questions regarding that one? I know that one is a little bit complicated.
I'm just, I was looking forward to that. When you said last application, it got me excited, John.
It was just a tease. So, so the next one is Wilbraham. Wilbraham has requested $517,000, which would require a waiver. To do that, their grant allocation is $313,800. So this is a construction project to reconstruct the Springfield Street Stony Hill Road intersection. Springfield Street is Route 20, which does carry the requisite amount of traffic. So we've determined that the project is eligible for funding. Total construction project is $1,140,000. And when we took a look at that, basically under our allocation formula, this project would be eligible for a subsidy of $517,000, but the town is limited by that $313,800 as the allocation. So this waiver certainly does meet that intent of the waiver request, as the town wouldn't be able to access the full amount of the eligible to the project absent the waiver. So with that, that is the actual last project, and wonder if there's any questions from the commission on that.
Commissioners, any questions on that one? Hearing none, Joe.
Okay. Well, that concludes our presentation.
All right. So, commissioners, I think we have some decisions to make. Commissioner Hill.
My first thought is great job to the group that put all these together for us and the presentation that you just gave us. Very enlightening, and obviously a lot of work went into this, and your recommendations I don't disagree with. I think getting back, the waivers that have been proposed, I'm okay with. And the projects that have been put before us, I'm fine with as well. I have no issues. Just great presentation and great work. I know what I would like to do, Mr. Chairman, but I'll wait to hear from my fellow commissioners on how they feel about the projects first.
Commissioner Skinner, I see your mic.
Oh, sorry.
I saw Commissioner Skinner's mic was up.
Thank you. Yeah, I echo Commissioner Hill in that the team did a great work. So my appreciation to the committee for reviewing every single one of these applications. I know that was no small task. And we've only gotten through half of them, give or take. We still have another region to go through on June 17th. And so
Let's call it 2/3.
hang in there. I just, on the issue of the guidelines, I know that there will be some communities having a second opportunity to put projects forward. I think I am fundamentally not opposed to these projects being funded. But I want to make sure that the commission, the entire commission, has an opportunity to understand exactly what is happening here. I would request that we bring forth a conversation about the guidelines and how this commission, via the committee, should be reviewing those guidelines at this point in time, and what the charge should be to the committee as it's moving forward in, I'll use Joe's terminology, giving communities another bite of the apple, because we have the issue of the waiver, the waivers that have been granted. We have the issue of supplementing funding that has arisen during today's presentation. And we have the matter of, reviewing new applications after the deadline, after, the committee has already made its recommendations, et cetera, et cetera. So I think what I'm hearing in all of that, and the way that it appears the majority of this commission is leaning, is that the guidelines as they stand today are not applicable. And if that is the determination of this commission, I think that it should be expressly stated. I think we should have a conversation about it, because to operate again in the way that in some cases disregard the guidelines, I think it threatens the credibility of this body. If we are going to set aside the guidelines, bits and pieces here and there, right? I think we should consider setting aside the guidelines in their entirety so that there is some form to what we are doing as a body.
Commissioner Skinner, I have to say something. I saw Commissioner Hill. I think we're just using our authority vested in 23K to interpret what we have already set forward. And this commission did set the guidelines. If I want to read it more liberal, that's, I believe, vested in my position as a commissioner. And so I hear what you're saying. I respect what you're saying. I really don't want to mitigate the real issues you're bringing up here. I'm just trying to figure out a way forward, and I think that all the decisions I'm making have actually been in line with what I've said for 3 cycles now. We can go back and watch the meetings, unfortunately, and see that I have always been on the side of reading these more liberally, trying to be as aggressive getting these dollars out the door to the communities that need them. And that's all I'm doing here. That's all I'm doing here. And I'm not looking, I'm not doing a measuring contest here of what is right and what is wrong. I think that we are operating under our authority and under the law. Commissioner Hill?
So I noticed Commissioner Skinner's mic was off. Did you want to respond?
Yeah,
Through you, Mr. Speaker, excuse me, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, no, thank you for the upgrade in title. Commissioner Hill, Commissioner Skinner?
Thank you, Commissioner Hill. I just want to say, to be clear, I don't think that the decision-making is wrong here, per se. And if we are, as a collective, setting aside the guidelines, certain provisions of it, taking a more liberal reading to them, I think or I would like to see that be more explicitly stated, rather than have these decisions be sort of incidental to the application. Just rather have a full-blown comprehensive discussion about how we would like to see this program moving forward for this cycle and for next year's cycle. And I think that there's a difference in that and how the discussion has developed today.
Thank you, Commissioner Skinner. Commissioner Hill?
So I guess I'm a little confused now. So I'm just going to be very brief, and I'm not sure how we're setting aside guidelines today. The guidelines that we voted and put into place are the rules in which we are now doing these applications. We allowed a waiver process. We discussed these. Oh, and let me just step back. We've always allowed towns to come back during the process to change a project, at least in the years that I've been here and that I've sat on this committee. So that hasn't changed. That's always been part of the process. If something didn't qualify, we would reach out to the city or the community and say, well, this probably doesn't qualify. Is there something else that maybe we could put in its place? And we've done that throughout the process every year we've been here. So I'm trying to understand, and you know how much I respect your opinions, and I do, but you made the comment that we're setting aside guidelines today. And I'm not sure that we are doing that. I think we're running through the applications with the rules that we voted on for this program. And I think the guidelines are being met in every way. So again, I'm always open to a discussion, and moving forward, we certainly can do that. I believe we do that every year anyways. We vote on new guidelines every year, Joe, if I'm not mistaken. So I don't want you to feel like we've done something different than what we voted on. I believe we're doing exactly what we voted on in terms of what has been presented today. So I'm a little confused by what you've said by setting aside the guidelines, because I don't think we've done that.
I think where we are offering the opportunity to come back, for communities to come back. And I understand that in the past, we have allowed communities to substitute, I don't know if substitute is the word, but to try to advance a different project under the guidelines. But I'm not recalling that we allowed that post-application deadline. I could be wrong about that, and Joe will set me straight, but that's not my recollection. The other concern is where we have explicitly stated year after year that we will not supplement community funding or the budget of the community. We have decided, or I don't know if we've taken a vote on this particular one yet, but I think that there was an appetite to move forward with approving that. And again, there was in terms of the waiver, I think I already stated that we do have that discretion. We built that into the guidelines, but in certain circumstances, triple and quadruple the amount, or by granting the waiver, we are tripling and quadrupling the amount of the allotted funding for one community. I think that is not what we bargained for when we considered exercising discretion and granting these waivers. And so, again, if there was this, if the committee or if this commission is operating under the idea that we would like to get these funds out of the door, you know, with an eye towards a more liberal interpretation of our guidelines, I think that that should have been explicitly stated. We had the opportunity at a prior meeting to kind of hash through what exactly we would like to see as a commission. We did touch on, you know, what we should do for this cycle, and that was with respect to, you know, should we limit the funding for this year so that we can have enough funding for next year? We talked about that very generally, but I think specifically, I think that we should have explicitly indicated to the committee what we had in mind for moving forward. And again, if the consensus was to get the money out of the door, so be it. But that is a discussion that I think should have been had before today.
So can I level set for a second here? I think Joe's presentation of the issue may have risen. It made me question too. You know, I'm looking at this as a modification of the application that came in at a timely fashion. If that's not what it is, then I would want to know that. But that's how I see it, as a modification, which we have allowed, as Commissioner Hill stated, modifications before. I think that may clarify, and I'll let Chief Delaney speak to that. And then I know Paul, I will go to Paul first, but to let the commissioners speak. I am looking at it, Commissioner Skinner, just so you know, every individual commissioner has a right to interpret those rules that we put in place ourselves as we deem necessary. So I actually think we're having the conversation that you're talking about right now as we're speaking. It's very public. Trust me, what we're saying right now is very public, and we're having the conversation. And I think all of our positions are being well fleshed out on how we're reading each of these. I also want to level set back to what I said earlier. This should be the most positive aspect of any of our jobs at the Massachusetts Gaming Commission. When we go visit these folks who get this money, it's been nothing but positive. And the alternative is to keep this money in a bank account and wait another year to see what we can do, if the money's replenished, if it's not. And what I would rather do, just to be crystal clear, and again, we don't need a separate meeting for this, and I'll say it again when Commissioner O'Brien is present. I want to get the money to the people that need it. I want to get the money out the door to those that can use it better than sitting in a bank account. We are in a unique financial time in this country right now and in this state. And I want to do the best we can to help people with an eye towards making sure that we're being compliant with the law. And I read a lot of discretion in the commissioners, individual commissioners' votes, and how they interpret their own guidelines, especially their own guidelines. And when I look at the statute and it says the commissioners shall expend, that's the language, shall expend. That's a very, very important statement to me, and it definitely touches me. Commissioner Broder, and then I'll go to Chief Delaney.
Sure. So we've opened up a lot of issues, and I'm not going to try to hit on everything, but I do want to make some comment as the person who has no prior background or experience applying these guidelines or establishing the guidelines. To echo a little bit of what Commissioner Hill said, in my kind of first go around, I feel like we have been following the guidelines, at least as I understand them, without having a history. And in terms of exercising discretion, I agree. We have, we're all going to have different interpretations of what perhaps is value, but I want to go back to this idea of value proposition. The statute says nothing about block grants, caps, or waivers. That was something that the commission, as far as I can tell, in its discretion, built this framework for whatever reason. And that doesn't mean we wipe it away, but I don't think we have. And I want folks to be careful about using this phrase, get the money out the door, because that, without anything built around it, isn't telling the story. To the chair's point, the commissioner shall push out the money. That does not mean we fund every idea that someone can dream up in their head, but I read that as fund anything that presents a reasonable reaction to the introduction of casino gaming to Massachusetts and a reasonable value proposition. And if the value proposition is best certified by issuing a waiver or recognizing a limitation that is important to work around, then I think we should do it. And I think we're at our best when we do make that consideration. I do want to, there's a more nuanced piece around this idea of replacement. And it's a little bit esoteric, but it comes a little bit from my municipal experience. There are expenses that arise that can be from casinos, can be from opening a school, whatever, the many things that a municipality or regional entity does, that they might pay for. The grant, our municipal grant money might not be enough to mitigate all the impacts. So if I, as a municipality, am covering, say, extra details on my operating budget, and I now find that unsustainable, I think it is very reasonable to come to the commission and say, this is something we've covered ourselves in the past that is a casino impact that we no longer have the ability to do because of changing financial circumstances. I think that is completely within our ambit. I would make the same argument perhaps around certain vehicle replacements. Does Medford need 5 new cruisers because of the casino? Probably not, because they still have to police the community whether the casino is there or not. Might the presence of a casino cause an acceleration of the replacement cycle of vehicles because there's more wear and tear on the particular vehicles? Yeah, that doesn't mean, a bunch of new vehicles every year, but I do think we can reasonably consider that impact as a municipality deals with that stress on the vehicles, on other infrastructure, and still be well within the bounds of impact based on the presence of casinos. So that's a lot. I'm not sure. I will say, as a thing, I think we're all pretty close to the same place in terms of recognizing we always have to review the process, and a new commissioner, new ideas. That means means I have ideas, and it means I need to be educated. So we should always be thinking about the way we do this, but I don't think there's anything that's going on that I've seen that is outside the bounds of the statute, or certainly even good process. I hope we can all agree on that.
Can I ask a question to frame it? Thank you, Commissioner Broder, Commissioner Skinner, and Commissioner Hill. And thank you, Commissioner Broder, again. I use hyperbole a little bit. It's because I'm Southern. And I just want to make sure that people know that absolutely the ... after I say I want the money out the door is to projects that are legally applicable. So.
No question about that, Mr. Chairman.
So, Chief Delaney, let me just ask you, I jotted down a question while Commissioner Broder was talking. Is there a history, because I think this could help me and Commissioner Skinner, is there a history at any point in the CMF program of adjusting applications during the review process prior to a final vote by the commission?
Yes, so we have, typically up until last year, including last year, we would have meetings with our applicants and we would go over their projects. And there would be instances where we would indicate to a community that we were not really looking favorably on it, and they would either need to provide us with additional information to kind of get us there, or, we might not approve it. A number of those communities have sort of seen the handwriting on the wall and said, oh, okay, so you're not going to approve this. Can we just replace this with another project? And we have allowed that to happen. We haven't, what we indicated this year, so if you remember last year, we had about 22, I think, or $23 million in applications. We put out about 18 million. And one of the things was we had a lot of projects that we did not approve within the applications. So one of the things we committed to doing this year was to working more closely with the communities to try to, cure those problems with those projects so that the money would get out to the communities, which is why we've this year, so in years past, people have done it more or less on their own. They've heard us saying, well, we don't think that this project is approvable, and said, they've sort of done it on their own. We never went back and said, please replace this project with something else at the time. We did do that specifically this year because that was one of the things that we committed to doing, was working closely with the applicants to try to get as much funding out as possible.
Yeah, so good constituent services. Commissioner Skinner, I want to make sure, I asked that question really for us. So, I
do have a clarifying question for Joe. Does that mean that there are applications that have already been submitted? Or does that mean, or do you have to solicit additional information, applications and information from communities at this point, given that we've rejected, or that you did not recommend funding what you have before you or what you've presented to the commission?
I'm not sure I'm clear on the question.
So in allowing or working with the community, as you just indicated, what does that entail? Does it require you to solicit an entirely new packet of information, documentation, et cetera, from the community?
So typically, under a typical circumstance, someone will submit an application and we'll have questions on the application where maybe we don't have enough documentation on something, and oftentimes, so we write a letter to the community, a request for supplemental information saying, we need information on these particular things. And after we get that letter, we then have a meeting with the community, we review the information. And at that point, we would say to the community, look, right now we're looking at this thing and we're not seeing how we're going to get to yes on this. And in that case, we've had communities come back and saying, well, can we replace that project? Or we would say to them, do you have anything else that could replace that project that would meet the guidelines?
Yep. And I don't want to waste our time, any time getting too granular on this, but that all happens while the committee is meeting prior to this comprehensive document that you submitted and that we had 2x2s on to the commission, correct? It's not the case where the committee has already met. The committee has identified projects that it wants to move forward with, and then the committee goes back and says, try again. this would be the first time that that is occurring, is in my understanding. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I think this is the first time that we've gone and said, this thing is not gonna fly. You need to come in with something else.
And so there you have it. That for me is different than, I think, what we intended by setting, and among other things, setting expectations in the guidelines. But again, I don't think that we need to get any more granular. I'm happy to have a conversation with Joe offline. I think you know where I'm coming from. I understand where all of my fellow commissioners are coming from. I support the communities, every single one of them. And I think that they should have the funding that they're entitled to per the statute. But I also think that I have a responsibility as a commissioner to ensure that we are diligent here, to ensure that we're consistent. And Chair Maynard, you mentioned the statutory basis for our work in granting and reviewing and granting these applications. You mentioned the importance of getting these funds to communities for legitimate and very worthy projects. All of that is true today. It was true last funding cycle, the funding cycle before that, and the one before that. So that is constant, and that hasn't changed for me. It was true then, like you. It was true for me then, and it is true for me today. Again, the difference is I think what's missing is a structured way to consider a more liberal approach to these applications and funding for this cycle.
Thank you, Commissioner Skinner. I appreciate that. And I just want a couple of clarifications. These have happened before the final vote. And I hear what, we're saying. Joe said, we can't get you to yes on this one. And the we in that sentence is the subcommittee. That said, the commission is the ultimate arbiter of all of these decisions. And you have at least one commissioner here who's saying in public, open in front of all the fellow commissioners, I want the CMF team to go and make sure that we've provided the best constituent services we can provide to the communities before I have to take a vote to deny money's going out the door. So I'm asking for due diligence so I can make my final decision and determination. And in this particular cycle, I need that piece of information. And so we have varied from the committee's wise and very important direction before. And before I do that one way or the other, I would like to know that happened. And I hear the leaning in on the process, Commissioner Skinner, which we're all different, right? And I know that of the commissioners, I tend to go to the rawness of the statute and the rawness of my duties as a commissioner when I look at all of these. And to me, the process, I remember asking Joe 2 cycles ago, I called it the safety valve or the release valve, Joe. Is that what I called it when we met?
Yeah.
I wasn't going to move forward on any guideline if we didn't have the safety valve. And so I see this whole conversation we're having as a safety valve conversation. How far do you want to pull the safety valve? And it's obvious to me some commissioners want to pull it one way, some commissioners want to pull it the other way. But I think the system and the process is there. I think it's just the interpretation. I think we're going to have a larger conversation going forward, no matter what this cycle is. But I have to have that. I can't take a vote to deny funds. So in fact, what I'm saying is, let me just logically work this out for myself and for you. I would be more likely to say, okay, Chief Delaney, give me the application in full. And then I would feel like I had to almost vote against the CMF recommendation team if I wanted to get the project out. Or can we find a project that's more worthy of those CMF dollars? And can we do so before we have to take a final vote? I'm just telling you where I'm coming from.
Yeah,
So
and I think what helps me, and this might help you too, in that scenario where, you know, the committee is trying to, or has communicated to the community that they can't get to yes, give us another project. I think that happens before the projects get submitted to the commission for consideration. In other words, I don't think the commission ever sees that project that the committee said they couldn't get to yes to. And that is a distinction here. That is the distinction here. And I want to, and if I'm wrong, I will eat my words, but that makes a difference to me. And so, you know, we can continue to talk offline. I'll connect with Chief Delaney, because if I'm opening a can of worms that you know, a baseless one, then, you know, I want to know that. To me, this feels very different than how we've, you know, kind of treated the no's in the past.
Well, remember too, it's a block grant, not the way it used to be. There's a big difference between the two.
and some would argue, me being the some, that the block grant, when I voted on it, was a little more wide than it's actually been.
I mean, and it's not lost on me that, you know, we were responsive to the communities in moving towards that direction, right? And I think that's a good thing. We certainly know how to, you know, work with the communities. And I think we should continue to do that with the appropriate guardrails. That's just where I come from.
Mr. Chairman, this
Commissioner
has
Hill.
been a very fruitful conversation that needs to continue, I think, at another time. And I appreciate everybody's opinion, as I always do, but I think at this point, I'm ready to move.
I'm ready to accept a motion, Commissioner Hill.
Why don't we start with the full approvals? I would move, Mr. Chairman, that the commission approve the following municipal block grant applications for funding from the Community Mitigation Fund for the purposes described in the submitted applications and materials included in the commissioner's packet, and for the reasons described therein as discussed here today, and further, that the commission staff be authorized to execute the necessary grant instruments commemorating these awards in accordance with 205 CMR 153.04, and those grant applications being from the city of Attleboro in the amount of $49,900, the town of Plainville in the amount of $153,300, of which $21,400 will be transferred to the town of Foxborough. From the city of Chicopee in the amount of $341,100. From the town of Hamden in the amount of $75,000. From the city of Northampton in the amount of $75,000. And from the town of West Springfield in the amount of $518,300.
Commissioner Hill, I was going to claim this motion, but I second it. You
My
wouldn't have known that, of course. Don't apologize.
Commissioner Hill,
Aye.
Commissioner Skinner,
Aye.
Commissioner Broder,
Yes.
and I vote yes. 4-0. Anybody want the next one? Or do
I'm
we
ready
have-
for it, but I don't want to steal again. Sorry about that. I do apologize. With that said, hold on to your hat, everybody. I move that the commission approve the municipal block grant application from the town of Foxborough for the funding from the Community Mitigation Fund in the amount of $399,300, including the amount of their waiver request for the purposes described in the submitted application and materials included in the Commissioner's packet, and for the reasons described therein as discussed here today, and further, that the Commission staff be authorized to execute all necessary grant instruments commemorating these awards in accordance with 205 CMR 153.04. I can either continue or we can do these individually. How would the commission like me to proceed?
Commissioners?
You're on a roll. Keep going.
Okay. I further move that the commission approve the municipal block grant application from the town of Mansfield for the funding from the Community Mitigation Fund in the amount of $147,700, including the amount of their waiver request for the purposes described in the submitted applications and materials included in the commissioner's packet, and for the reasons described therein as discussed here today, and further, that the commission staff be authorized to execute all necessary grant instruments commemorating these awards in accordance with 205 CMR 153.04. And I further move that the commission approve the municipal block grant application from the town of North Attleboro for funding from the Community Mitigation Fund in the amount of $1,572,350, including the amount of their waiver request for the purposes described in the submitted applications and materials included in the commissioner's packet, and for the reasons described therein as is discussed here today, and further, that the commission staff be authorized to execute all necessary grant instruments commemorating these awards in accordance with 205 CMR 153.04. And I further move that the commission approve the municipal block grant application from the town of Rentham for funding from the Community Mitigation Fund in the amount of $155,200, including the amount of their waiver request, of which $76,800 will be transferred to the town of Foxborough for the purposes described in the submitted applications and materials included in the commissioner's packet, and for the reasons described therein and as discussed here today. And further, that the commission staff be authorized to execute all necessary grant instruments commemorating these awards in accordance with 205 CMR 153.04. And I further move that the commission approve the municipal block grant application from the town of Wilbraham for funding from the Community Mitigation Fund in the amount of $517,000, including the amount of the waiver request, for the purposes described in the submitted applications and materials included in the commissioner's packet, and for the reasons described therein and as discussed here today, and further, that the commission staff be authorized to execute all necessary grant instruments commemorating these awards in accordance with 205 CMR 153.04.
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Broder. Commissioner Hill,
Aye.
Commissioner Skinner,
Aye.
Commissioner Broder,
Yes.
and I vote yes, 4-0.
You have
All
another
right.
set, right?
I was gonna see if we're all set. I know we're holding those public safety grants, right?
Yeah, I think we do have the partial approvals to get through. And so, Mr. Chairman, I move that the commission approve in part the following municipal block grant applications for funding from the Community Mitigation Fund for the purposes described in the submitted applications and materials included in the commissioner's packet, and for the reasons described therein and as discussed here today. And further, that commission staff be authorized to execute all necessary grant instruments commemorating these awards in accordance with 205 CMR 153.04. The town, the communities are, and amounts are town of Agawam in the amount of $321,500. The town of East Longmeadow in the amount of $347,200, and the town of Longmeadow in the amount of $216,000. Although
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I want to amend that motion because were we deferring East Long Meadow?
Long Meadow.
Long Meadow, okay. I apologize. I'm going to withdraw my motion and start again, if that's okay.
That's okay, Commissioner Skinner.
I move that the commission approve in part the following municipal block grant applications for funding from the Community Mitigation Fund for the purposes described in the submitted applications and materials included in the commissioner's packet and for the reasons described therein and as discussed here today. And further, that commission staff be authorized to execute all necessary grant instruments commemorating these awards in accordance with 205 CMR 153.04. Those communities are Town of Agawam in the amount of $321,500 and the Town of East Long Meadow in the amount of $347,200.
Second.
All right, Commissioner Hill,
Aye.
Commissioner Skinner,
Aye.
Commissioner Broder,
Yes.
and I vote yes 4-0.
Okay, so I guess just for the record, we'll be taking up the regional public safety grants at the June 17th meeting and also revisiting the Long Meadow application.
Thank you,
And with
Joe.
that, I guess that completes our report for today.
All right. Thank
Mr.
you so
Chairman?
much, Chief Delaney. And I want to say thank you to Mary Thurlow and Lily Wallace, who left us. We appreciate them. Commissioner Skinner.
Thank you. I need my fellow commissioners, and I know they do, but I need to state this. I am not opposed to funding these communities. And I also want the public to understand that. I am not opposed to funding these communities. I think, again, they are very worthwhile projects. And wherever we can help the communities, again, in this fiscal climate, I agree that we should do so. But as I said, and I don't want to rehash anything, so I'll just stop there, and leave it at that final thought. I am supportive of the communities in this great state of Massachusetts.
Commissioner Skinner, I got to say, I have had the opportunity to work with everybody here for 3+ years, with the exception of Commissioner Broder. And I even remember you, Commissioner. You were you don't remember me, Commissioner Broder, but I remember you from COVID time. And there's nobody here that isn't committed to the entire Commonwealth. We love being here. We love doing our service. Commissioner Broder.
Oh, no, I was the proof is in your votes, Commissioner Skinner. Again, speaking for myself, but I hope the commission chooses. Absolutely nothing wrong with what went on here today from my perspective. I hope you feel that way. As Commissioner Hill said, good discussion. Something we're going to be thinking about as this whole process evolves, both from our side and the funding side, right? So all good.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Hill.
you forgot to give a little shout out to Jaden, our little buddy from Northeastern who's been interning.
I did. Cause you know why? Because I have that stupid setting. No offense, Mills. I have that setting on my computer that doesn't show me everyone's face that's up. So yes, thank you to him too. All right. Well, again, I want to stop where we started, which is this is all happy news. Right? We just helped a lot of folks out. And I think that was the intent of the legislature when they passed it. And I think and the governor signed it. And we're doing our duty. And the conversation we had today, we have to do it. The open meeting law requires it. And what you see is, a very engaged commission that cares about what they do. That's what I saw today. So I appreciate everyone's comments.
Motion to adjourn, Mr. Chairman.
My second.
All right, Commissioner Hill,
Aye.
Commissioner Skinner,
Aye.
and Commissioner Broder.
Yes.
All right, everyone enjoy the rest of your day.
Here, here.